Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of the Ultimate Track Guide. This is Snetterton. Super technical track, one of the new British DLC. We're in the Lexus today. I know you guys have seen this car a lot. I'm going to do the other two tracks in a different car, but today I need to set this car up for a race tomorrow evening, so I thought I'd kill two birds with one stone. This is such a difficult track set in the heart of Norfolk in England, and it's just, there's so many different corners, so many different types of corners, and it is a minefield. If you don't know where you're going, or you haven't had the tips or tricks, then this is the guide for you. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We've got a Discord as well, me and Sean Arnold run, so if you're not in there, then get involved. Loads of setups, loads of tips. The link will be in the description below. Let's dive in. As I said, this is the ultimate track guide for Snetterton. So coming around the super technical last corner, then we get a bit of a breather actually going down the start finish straight. It's quite a nice track in that sense that it's so intense that you need this sort of 10-second buffer just to compose yourself, do your pit stop, tyre pressures, all that sort of thing. And we're confronted with this, and I said this a lot I think on ACC, is we've got some great braking markers into the first corner. We've got this 100-metre board on the left-hand side. The braking marker is just after that, but you can use it as a sort of in this green box, where you can use it as a reference, and we want to be taking this first corner as tight as we can. Do not, though, go on the curb on the inside. I cannot stress that enough. You can get away with it on the first half of the corner, but on the second half you will ramp up. If we just zoom it forward here, you see how early we're actually coming off the brakes. If you look down to the right hand side where we've got the throttle and brake inputs, we're already coming off the brakes as we're starting to turn. It's just a quick jab of the brakes, come down a couple of gears, and you can maybe stay in fourth here. I flicker down to third to get the turn in, clip that curb on the inside. I've short shift back up to fourth to get that, keep that momentum, but at all costs, do not go on this curb that I've highlighted in red here. Please do not go. If you're being forced onto it by someone trying to squeeze you, then crash into them, because you will basically do a backflip if you hit that curb. A little bit of room on the outside, not too much, as the curb's quite short, and we're confronted with this number 2 board on the left-hand side for our brake marker into turn 2. Hard on the brakes. You can go 100% on the brakes here as long as you're in a straight line, but as soon as you start to turn, we're going to be employing that magic phrase, trail braking, to try and get the car rotated round. You can see how early I'm starting to come off the brakes here. We're nowhere near the apex of the corner, right? But as soon as I start turning that wheel, I need to take some pressure off the tyres. Trail braking nicely into the apex, trying to get the back end rotated nice and early on the power. In front engine cars, you need to be a little bit patient. In mid engine, so you can stamp on the throttle and rotate the car, which is really nice. Now, super tricky left-hander. You've got the two sort of, just let you know it's a left-hander board, really. They're kind of useless other than the fact that they're there. Markers to use as a braking bridge slightly before that, because you just need to be a bit tentative around here. If you try and brake super late, the camber will drop you off the road to the right-hand side. But it's actually, it's nice and simple. You could take a couple of jabs at the throttle, but for me, as soon as I see this sort of orange marker, as long as it's still there, then you can pretty much floor it from there. As you see, we're pretty much up to full power. There's more exit than I used there, which is absolutely fine. You don't need to be quite as cautious through there, but I think it's one of those corners that doesn't gain you much if you try really hard around it, if that makes sense. So let's watch the first sector again. Just after the 100-metre board, tight on the apex, early on the power, make sure the nose is gripped. You've got a lot of room, but it's a short runoff on the left-hand side, braking hard in the straight line as soon as you start to turn off that apex. It's not a double apex there. Don't go too wide on entry. You don't gain any time from cutting back in a straight line, because this straight isn't very long. Just wanted to pause it, look at the braking here, how quickly it's a jab on the brakes, and then a bleed off immediately. And if you need to adjust the car on the throttle, then so be it through that left-hander, because I have a couple of jabs at it where I'm not going as quickly as possible, and that will come with time, with a bit more sort of practice and getting to know this car around here as well. This first corner, then you've got this sort of green zone, which is the happy braking zone, and as soon as you start to go near that next braking marker, you're into the danger. You're not going to make it. You're going to be forced out wide here onto the Astro, and as you can see, this runoff is huge on the left, so especially in the wet, don't get caught out by that. I'm going to pause it here just on, you know, where we're parallel to this sausage curb on the inside here. You can see we're not going particularly wide here. It's all about getting the car rotated rather than slowing down more and cutting back to get a straighter exit. Like I said, the next straight isn't long enough to make it a difference, okay? So nice and smooth on the power. There's a little bit of room, but not too much, because again, the curb is quite short on the exit there. Couple of jabs of the throttle just to keep the nose, just adjusting the car mid-corner, using the throttle or the brake up to you, and then we're away into the straight, into the second sector, and we're immediately faced with this heavy braking left-hander. We got a couple of nice brake markers. Again, you've got the 100-meter board up here, but actually what I want to get you to look at is this dark patch on the road. I've highlighted it there. It is very difficult to see, and I appreciate that. But as long as you see it, you know, the first time you see it, you'll be like, oh, yeah, okay. And then that is the braking marker for you. Again, into Agostini, this is trail braking again. We're just holding onto that brake a little bit, using the throttle just to balance the rear end of the car if we're not quite stable enough for your liking. And again, we're not going particularly wide round here, guys. We're keeping it quite narrow, but we're still trying to cut back. You see that final phase of the corner where the car, the nose just bites and it just grips a little bit more, and we turn left just a little bit sharper to get that straight exit that we need. Immediately faced with what is probably the third most awkward corner on the track. You've got this nice grass sort of area on the right hand side here. The end of the sand there is kind of your braking point. We're just as the bonnet goes over the end of that marker there, you need to be braking before these sort of left hand markers. This corner is all about carrying, and ironically it's called Hamilton, the corner name's Hamilton, all about carrying enough speed. You can go super tight to the barrier, but don't clip, you can knock it over, but don't, because you'll just bounce up on the curb. And whatever you do not go wide. This is again one of those corners which actually does reward you for being a bit more ballsy, but doesn't gain you that much time in the grand scheme of things, so don't go wide. Immediately faced with these two right-hand marker boards for your braking point for the next corner, which is super awkward. It is a ever-tightening right-hander, which is really important because it's corner 2 before a straight, so you need to get this one right to set yourself up perfectly for the corner onto the straight. So braking hard, trailing off nicely. You can go over the curb on the inside, but I don't. Look how early we're on full power and our steering is straight. So we immediately should be turning our attention to getting traction out of this corner, but then turning our eyes need to start looking to the right-hand side of the track, and that will guide you round to the right. If you think you're done and dusted and you're keeping the steering straight here, you're wrong, because you'll end up in the fence on the left-hand side. So we need to be looking to the right-hand side of the track to guide the car round. And then we need to be taking advantage of this lovely little Astro that they've provided for us on the left-hand side that I've highlighted in green there to widen our entry into what is probably one of the most important corners on the straight, which actually, on this lap, I don't get perfect, I'll admit, but you need to be taking advantage, turning in as wide as possible. I take a bit too much speed, so I understeer slightly, but it's at this point you should be starting getting back on the power. So you need to get that back end rotated, but immediately be ready to open up that steering, because for some reason it's like the tarmac changes in the middle of that corner. I'm sure you guys have found the same things. The car just snaps, the car just oversteers. It doesn't matter what car it is, and you're left with complete opposite lock going onto the Bentley straight, which is the longest straight on the track. Super difficult, that sector. So let's again have another little pause through this hairpin. Again, a similar sort of place right on the apex, and again we're not going that wide, but then there's this tiny cutback, just trying to get as straight as possible and using a lot more of the curb on the exit than we can do in the hairpin in the first sector. Immediately faced with this fast left-hander, don't go too wide, don't really go over the curb there. And this is what I mean about this super awkward corner. Okay, so if I pause it here, you can see that a lot of people think that we can go straight here. If you carry too much speed through it and follow the dark markings on the track, you're going to have to cut back harder and tighter than what you are if you take a tighter line in the first instance. So it's actually quite a good area for racing, because you can go side by side through here, but in my opinion you should stay tighter in the first half of this corner to get a straighter line into the second half. A little bit wider here, you can just brake a tiny bit later than this, but anything past the end of the Astro, really you're starting to get into the, is that really worth it territory. So just at the end of the Astro, depending on what car you are, getting that rotation round. Just have another look at it then from sort of on board. get as straight as exit as possible. You can go a lot more on that curb. And this one is all about taking the speed, remember. Using the end of that grass, just get the nose in and fire the corner out. I know that sounds ridiculous to say, but it's all about getting the nose into that corner. Straighten the steering up as quickly as possible. Using this Astro, aiming for the Astro on the left-hand side. Don't carry as much speed as I do there. Get on the power nice and early. And away we go down the Bentley straight. Little bit of a breather. We'll go straight into the next sector and what is possibly the most difficult corner. I think you guys will find this the most difficult corner on the track, right? We've got a brake marker. It's this 100-meter board on the right-hand side. Do not go past this, really. You can if you're on a proper hot lap. We're off 50 litres of fuel right now, so we've got a bit of weight in the car, but I really wouldn't be wanting to go too much faster into Brundle here. Definitely don't go as fast as the bridge. And this is trail braking corner king, right? So this is your opportunity to practice trail braking. We're keeping the car, see, we never go up to full braking here. We're sort of 60%. It's all about adjusting the car on the throttle and the brake here. And we're just trying to carry as much speed as possible while still being able to stop on the left-hand side of the track here. Look how far left we are. We're still on that sort of 50-60% throttle, and I can show you the telemetry trace. I'll put it in the description because it's really, really interesting. And we're holding on to that brake all the way into the apex here, and of course, do not hit this sausage curb on the inside, guys. We've got sausage curves on the left to avoid, we've got sausage curves on the right to avoid. It's just a nightmare. Again, straightening that steering up. There's a little bit more room than I used there, and you're immediately faced with this corner. You hit the compression there. You feel the car compress down into the road, and that's your cue to then accelerate. There's so much room on the outside. I think it's probably only the second time I paused it on this. But you've got this whack and great curve to use on the outside, and you could use all of it. The left-hand tyre is basically on the Astro here, as you'll see on the overhead. And immediately we're into this really long corner. You're just in the middle of the road. There's no real, there's sort of a golden zone there. We can cut back. You can see we never go to full braking again. I can't stress enough for the previous couple of corners. Not going to full braking is so important, guys. It's all about getting technical on the brakes, and adjusting the car on the brakes. But again, you need to be similar to Brundle. A couple of corners ago, you need to be braking on the right-hand side here and braking as straight as you can, holding the brake really nicely into the corners. You can see we're still on that sort of 10%, 5% trail brake here. But this one you can take a little bit more shallow, as it's got a wider entry than Brundle. So a little bit earlier turn in. You can cut back more. You can stay over to the right-hand side a little bit longer than this. I'm not going to lie, especially in mid-engine cars where you can fire out a little bit easier than this. But again, lots of grippy, sort of Astro-like turf on the exit, the corded Astro, and away we go for the lap. Super exciting track, super exciting lap, and really technical. But I hope you guys appreciate sort of some of the tips and tricks. Let's look at this one again then, because it's difficult. It's all about adjusting on the brakes, keeping to the left-hand side of the track, nice and smooth down the gears, and then straightening up as soon as you get on the power through there. Can't stress that enough. Probably should play it in slow-mo for you guys, but you can sort of play it back a few times because it's really important to get that rhythm through there. You're braking not at 100%. This one, you've got this sort of golden zone in the middle where you can cut back, but you're still staying tight to the inside. And then again, smooth on the power. There's sort of that phase where you're 60% power for just a split second, straighten the steering, and then you can bolt out the corner with 100% power, and then you're across the line. Let's look at it from above. If you've not subbed to the channel as well, do make sure you do that, because there's loads more of these track guys coming across GT3 and 4. So we pause it here. This is on the sort of marker that we pointed out. Definitely brake before the bridge. Even if you're on the bridge, it's going to be too late. You've got this sort of golden zone. It's not about carrying so much speed into it. It's about adjusting the car on the brake and the throttle through here. And you need to be, it's almost a half slide, as you can see there. Look how far left that we need to stay here. If you're ready, it is an overtaking opportunity. It's an awkward one because of the sausage curb, but we need to stay left on the entry there. Use as much of the exit as straight as we can. And here's the compression corner. As soon as you feel the car dip down, then that's the time to fire the throttle on. And as long as your car's hooked up and the front end is bit, then you're absolutely fine. Loads of room on the exit. And here's this sort of golden zone I'm talking about here. So you're not too far away from the inside. If you go wider than this, you're either going to slip off the track into this massive field essentially to the left hand side, or you're going to lose too much speed when you cut back. You have to slow down more to cut back and get a straight line into the braking zone. So this sort of inside middle lane is the one for me, because it still allows you to carry good speed, but you can cut back really nicely to keep over to the right hand side. You see we're right of the racing line, what the game thinks the racing line through there is. Then you get a bit of a straighter exit, loads of room on the exit, and away we go for our lap. And that's a 46.6 with 50 litres of fuel on, and I think we're 27 temps from memory, some similar to that. So let's have another look at the entire lap together, because it comes thick and fast, and I want to reinforce some of the things we've talked about with you guys, but to watch the whole thing, because it's difficult watching it in bits sometimes. Nice and early on the apex into the first corner. You can change up a gear if you want to keep the momentum. Don't use too much of that curve, because you'll end up bubbling along the grass, and it's just a never-ending spiral of doom out there. Nice and tight through here. Make sure you let the front of the nose bite if you're in a front-engined car. Sorry, not front-wheel drive. In a mid-engine car, you can just fire the throttle, and the back end will rotate around, similar to this one as well. The mid-engine cars are much more nimble around that first sector. Immediately faced with this hairpin as well, just before, well, on the little dark patch on the dirt. Again, keeping tight, but trying to manipulate the car so you get that double apex feel from there. Nice, good speed through here, keeping it above 90 miles an hour. Don't go too wide. Immediately faced with a braking zone for this really awkward right-hander. Turn your eyes to the right-hand side of the track now. You're thinking about going right, and you'll follow the line to the right. At the end of the Astro, don't carry too much speed. I probably should have just held on to the brakes there a little bit more. Be aware that this tarmac just turns to ice in the middle of that corner, so be ready to have not just your opposite lock on, but almost just preempt the fact that you're going to need straight steering. Braking on the 100-meter board, all about not braking fully on the brakes here. You can brake harder when you're in a straight line just before the right-hand turn, but you need to keep on the left-hand side of the track. Let off, feel the compression, then back on the power, nice and smooth. Lots of runoff on the left-hand side, and then use this sort of inside middle golden zone that we've talked about, so you can cut back on the right-hand side of the track here. Brake in a straight line again. A little bit earlier turn in, you think there, and then lots of room on the outside, and away we go for the lap. 1 minute 46 comes thick and fast through Snetterton. I'll leave you with the overhead, guys, but if you thought this was useful, then do sub to the channel, get in the Discord, the link's in the description below, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.